A true myth follows Joel Deckard, a seasoned paranormal skeptic who makes his living debunking the supernatural. After hearing reports of high strangeness in the quiet town of Pleasant Valley, Joel embarks on a new case intending to disprove the claims. But instead, he meets three locals with stories that refuse to be dismissed. A father and son are tempted by a demonic entity offering a cursed blessing. Two estranged brothers are forced to reunite to stop a monstrous beast that resurfaces every generation, and a neglected child becomes determined to prove the existence of a Bugman to his father. As the stories grow more personal, Joel's unwavering skepticism begins to crack. Blending folklore, creature horror, and grounded human drama, A True Myth is a three-part anthology that explores belief, faith, and the unsettling possibility that there may be more to this world than what we can see or believe. Well, that's at least what the back of the Blu-ray says. But how did we get here? Come on, let's see what we did. Making movies has been a part of my life since childhood. I've made so many terrible films with friends in middle and high school, most of which will never see the light of day. There's even a 4-part series where I star as a superhero named Tire Iron Man, a failed feature that was a blatant ripoff of Mad Max, and many one-off shorts. As rough as those films were, they laid the groundwork for this movie. In 2017, I met Brian while working at a film school I'd previously graduated from. We struck up a friendship, and we bonded over classic effects films and old-school DVD bonus features, especially the making of Jaws, which might be one of the most influential pieces of filmmaking media in both of our lives. From there, we went on to work together on dozens of commercials and videography jobs. I once had a teacher tell me that before making a movie, you need to get good at telling a 1-minute story, then get good at telling a 10-minute story. Eventually, you work your way up to a 20-minute short. We had been producing story-driven tourism commercials, almost like mini short films, and after doing a handful of those, we felt it was time to do something for ourselves, inspired by the practical effect-driven movies that inspired us. What grew from there was the idea of an anthology film. Now it was time to tell 3 short films. We could keep the quality high and produce one each summer for the next 3 years. The stories would be connected by an overarching main character that would tie everything together. It sounded so simple at the time, but a marriage and 2 kids later, it turned into a 5-year trial by fire that pushed us to the very limits of our filmmaking ability. But somehow, we got it done. So come on, join me on the journey and let's see how we did it. My first true cinema camera was purchased in 2016, the Sony FS7. That camera has remained by my side throughout nearly all my professional work. But finally we come to the camera that this movie was filmed on, the Blackmagic Ursa Pro 4.6K. But what I believe is even more important than the camera is the lens. To soften some of the digital sharpness and give the film a more vintage character, we shot primarily on 2 classic ingenue zoom lenses, the 25-250 and the 20-120. They bring a character and texture that modern glass simply can't replicate.
Patterson's, Arthur's, even the Thurman farm, gone. Do you want that?
So the journey began, and like all stories, it started with writing. Each segment, Brian and I would hash out a general idea. From there, I would go off and write. This stack of binders holds all the notes, scribbles, ideas, and rough drafts of the movie. As you can clearly see, a massive amount of time went into the writing phase. It's the core to any film, the foundation of a good movie. If the roots are rotten, the end product will be too.
When you have a boy, you'll know.
Okay, let's say when I do. What I tell him? Your grandfather chose a piece of land over you?
You tell him his pa loved him. Loved him enough to leave him with a place called home.
Dad, I can't do this alone.
We wanted to make this a film that was fun to watch while maintaining an emotional core and creating compelling characters that were more than just one-dimensional cannon fodder.
You drove my boy away searching for some damn monster. That's not what he's searching for. He's just looking for his dad.
What are you even talking about?
This was supposed to be your lot in life, not mine. But somebody had to stay here and pick up your mess.
Jim, I'm sorry!
Two books I highly recommend that I go to every time I'm writing a screenplay are Save the Cat and Story by Robert McKee. Definitely must reads if you're interested in screenwriting. Another aspect I believe is key to maintaining the visual identity of your film is storyboarding. If Ridley Scott thinks it's important, then we probably should too. Brian is immensely talented across multiple art forms, and storyboarding is one of them. After finishing each script, I handed it off to him. He outlined and broke down every scene, envisioning each shot first in his mind and then bringing it to life on paper. The storyboards create a graphic novel version of the film. When it's time to shoot, you don't have to stress. You already know how it should look. Now, you might have a character written on the page, but until they're cast, they exist only in the realm of words. Most of the main roles were cast with professional working actors, while many of the background characters were filled by normal people. Family, friends, anyone I knew. Sometimes all you need is the right look, something Leone always preached. The first film we worked on was Lord of the Harvest. This short revolves around a family who encounters a demonic presence that offers them a cursed blessing to save both the farm and the crop. One of the centerpieces of the story is a cornfield. Luckily, I live on my family's farm, and that year we were growing corn. We needed the crop to be fully grown and still green, which meant we had a narrow filming window from about July to August. We scheduled the shoot over a 5-day period. Oh, and also, my wife was pregnant with our first child and due in just a few weeks, so we had 2 hard deadlines to deal with. One important aspect of a true myth is its heavy use of practical effects. In fact, that was one of the driving forces behind the entire project. Everything is handmade and practical. Puppets, stop-motion creatures, miniatures, a return to the techniques we love so much in classic films. We had a hard deadline to finish everything before the corn turned yellow, and Lord of the Harvest featured several major props that had to be finished. An evil scarecrow, a giant bird egg, an evil baby bird, and a full demonic bird animatronic. When it comes to low-budget filmmaking, you end up using whatever materials you can get your hands on to build the props. 2 of our go-to supplies are masking tape and Flex Seal. The Scarecrow prop was built by layering rolls of masking tape and then coating the entire thing in Flex Seal to give a charred, burnt appearance. One of the major scenes we needed was the Scarecrow burning, so one night we drenched it in gasoline and set it ablaze. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh!
I wish the arms were a little more.
Oh my god.
They're getting there.
Brian, this is terrifying. Brian was living in Ohio at the time, so he had to begin work on the baby bird, while I started building the full-scale animatronic. Brian's baby bird was designed as a hand puppet, operated by one person, and intended to hatch from the egg. Action. Okay, go again, and action. Okay, let's try it again. Brian built the egg by covering an inflated balloon with paper mache. Once it hardened, he popped the balloon, leaving behind a hollow shell. To make it crack open on cue, I installed a remote-activated electronic actuator inside the egg. When triggered, it would push the top of the shell open.
Alright, cut.
I feel like that one was
That was good.
We wanted the grown demon bird animatronic to be shown in full body, so it required the creature to be ran solely by servos and electronic actuators. One unexpected challenge was the sheer number of feathers needed to cover the massive beast. Some of the larger ones were built from black fabric, while the smaller ones were purchased. The animatronic was controlled by a board that could expand the wings, raise and lower the body, lift the head up and down, and open the mouth. A separate wireless remote controlled facial servos like blinking, tongue movements, and a few other things. After finishing the upper half, Brian came down a week before shooting to help complete the legs. Sadly, all that remains is this head, but when it was fully built, it towered at about 10 feet tall. We even set up for Halloween one year. The climax of Lord of the Harvest required our main actress to be pulled into a hell portal in the ground. How do you pull someone into the ground? Well, we had to build an elevated platform and shoot it at a very specific angle to align with the corn. When Brian runs in, he's actually running up a small staircase. And action.
You can't have her! This is my daughter!
Go, Brian.
Take me! Please take me! God, take me! Take me!
Let's say you need a giant bird to grab your lead actor by the neck. It's actually a lot easier to start with the claw already around his neck than pull it away. In post-production, you simply reverse the shot and suddenly it looks like the creature's attacking him. So with no time to spare, we finished everything and filmed our first segment of A True Myth. After completing a small-scale film with a handful of characters and one primary location, the natural next step was a multi-character ensemble story with dozens of locations, multiple creature effects, and ending requiring an enormous amount of blue screen work. Yeah, I'm not sure what we were thinking. Legend of Bugman follows a young boy as he tries to prove to his father, the mayor of the town, that a bipedal bug creature exists. This film involved dozens of characters and locations, a radio tower, graveyard, town hall, mayor's office, power station, and one of the main highlights was a paranormal museum, which we were also fortunate enough to actually film in a real paranormal museum. With such a large cast, logistics became a nightmare. The town hall scene required a crowd of angry residents, most of which were my family and friends I convinced to show up.
Ready? And action!
This film had two major effects hurdles. First was a central creature known as Bugman. Brian began concept development on the creature early in the process. We went through many iterations of what the creature would look like, but finally one day I went over to his apartment and under his desk was an old sculpture he had made years prior for an alien character for a student film. I looked at him and said, "What is that Bugman thing?" That's how the name came about, and that's also how the character was born. Bugman would be brought to life using two methods: a 1.5 foot tall stop motion puppet for full body shots, and a full-scale chest-up puppet with one arm for close-ups and interactions. First to be built was the full-scale arm prop that could be used in shots where the creature had to interact with the environment. Okay, lift the arm, lift it back, and then bring the arm in. Okay, yeah, good. Next, Brian built an internal head structure allowing the puppet to blink and move its eyes, operate remotely while another puppeteer moved the head. Brian created a custom 3D printed cradle that housed both the eyes and the two servos. This allowed the eyes to be remotely controlled using an RC transmitter. One servo controlled the left to right eye movement, while the second controlled the blinking. I think this version of Bugman really channels some of that classic Jim Henson magic. Action. If that wasn't enough, the primary scene featuring Bugman took place on top a radio tower platform. We had to build the physical platform for the actors to shoot against, and also a massive blue screen that would go behind it.
Ben, come down!
I can't! He's here!
The stop-motion puppet was created by sculpting the creature in clay, molding it, building an internal armature skeleton, and layering latex inside the mold. Once cured, expanding foam formed the body. After painting, Bugman was born. What followed were days of stop-motion animation, frame by frame, painstaking, photographing the puppet against a blue screen. There were roughly 15 stop-motion shots featuring the bug puppet. Each shot required the creature to be photographed from a unique angle or interacting with something in the scene. Let's just say there was a lot of old granddad 1/14 proof consumed during those long nights. Meanwhile, we built additional creatures for a montage sequence. I built the lake monster and the basement dweller. The lake monster was originally designed as a hand-operated puppet. Brian would dive underwater and control the head with his arm. Unfortunately, it didn't go as planned. Operating a puppet underwater is far more difficult than it looks. The foam I used to build the creature absorbed water, causing the puppet to barely function.
Okay, action!
It became heavy, unwieldy, and nearly impossible to position correctly. Worse, it kept floating away, making full submersion almost unattainable. The result was a complete failure, so I pivoted. I built an entirely new version of the creature as a stop-motion puppet. This time, it would be filmed in a controlled environment, ideally a dry studio, allowing for precise, deliberate movement. From there, I composited the stop-motion creature into the original footage alongside the actor, bringing the lake monster to life in a way that the hand puppet simply couldn't achieve. Meanwhile, Brian built the cosmic shrimp, the graveyard ghoul, and Bobby a cave goblin living in a little girl's room. The cosmic shrimp would be a large stop-motion puppet. Brian built the shrimp creature layer by layer using masking tape before coating it in good old-fashioned Flex Seal. The joints were constructed from metal wire, allowing them to move incrementally frame by frame. Brian built the shrimp while I worked on the miniature power station and alignment truck for the shrimp to destroy. We hauled the model out into the field and blew it up. Bobby the bedroom ghoul was another stop-motion puppet that emerged from a portal in a little girl's bedroom. Bobby was a stop-motion puppet. However, unlike with Bugman, his head was the only thing sculpted and molded. The rest used a technique called the build-up method. But where does a Bobby Goblin live? Well, we built a simple wooden frame and covered it in chicken wire. The wire allowed us to establish the basic shape of the cave walls. Next, we channeled our inner elementary school art class and covered the entire structure in paper mache. Spray foam was then used to create the final texture. But I'm really happy with how it's turning out. As you can see, that's Brian back there. He's kind of finishing up a few details. We actually are going to try to shoot this tonight and get it out of the way. We've turned this room into a young boy's bedroom. There's Brian. You can see we've got the portal, we got the gateway set up. Finally, the graveyard ghoul was a rod puppet, which means he was puppeteered in live time by the two of us. Rods were connected to its joints, which allowed us to freely move him, kind of like the xenomorph in Alien 3. We eventually realized that if we wanted to get more of a ghostly effect, it would be better to actually animate him inside of a fish tank. It allowed it to have more of an ethereal and ghostly form. And just like that, we finally finished the second part of A True Myth. Now we are in the final home stretch. Beast of the Valley follows two estranged brothers who witnessed their father die at the hands of a monstrous creature. 25 years have passed and it's returned. Can the boys reunite and slay the beast? This final segment involved intense effects sequences, but fewer location changes. The script called for a ridgeline where the protagonist would battle the beast. We could have filmed it in the woods, but I wanted complete control over the look and atmosphere, so we decided to build it ourselves. We constructed it in my family's barn. I wanted it to feel like a classic Universal monster film, since this portion would be shot in black and white. I built several full-scale fake trees from spray foam and cardboard, while Brian and I constructed the rocky hillside using insulation foam, chicken wire, paper, and a lot of gray paint.
Scene 11D, take 2.
Unlike with Bugman, Brian had been developing this creature called the Eel for years. Once we chose that design, we began fabricating the 3 versions needed. First was a stop-motion puppet for wide shots, second was a hand puppet for miniature interaction, and third was a full-scale neck and head prop. This would become the largest effect we have ever built. Years prior, we had made a tourism commercial featuring a giant catfish named Big Ed. He was a full-scale head prop that could move side to side and open its mouth. The eel creature would take that initial idea and expand it greatly. Because actors would interact with the full-scale head, it had to be completed before principal photography, so we were kind of in a rush. Brian 3D printed the head in segments and assembled it into one structure. The neck was built from upholstery foam, and we mounted it on an old camera crane I owned. This allowed us to move it freely in all directions. As Brian completed the body, I engineered the mechanism allowing the mouth and mandibles to open using pulleys, springs, and hinges. The finished result was something we are both incredibly proud of. The main scene requiring the giant head took place inside a cabin, so we loaded it into the back of a trailer and hauled it 40 minutes out to a remote location. We also built a full-scale foot prop, though it was only used in a single shot. It just goes to show how much work can even go into the briefest moments on screen. Brian then built the stop-motion puppet, similar in construction to Bugman, but requiring far more shots. The armature was 3D printed and would allow the creature to move more freely, and also, if one of the joints broke, we could replace it. We spent nearly 3 weeks filming complex stop-motion sequences, the creature emerging from the woods, attacking people, and interacting with miniature sets. I think there were a total of probably 30 shots of the creature in stop motion. For the stop motion sequences, we shot on a DSLR, specifically the Canon 5D Mark III. The camera was connected to a program called Dragon Frame, which is widely considered the industry standard for capturing stop motion photography. Next, I built a miniature cabin using balsa wood and insulation foam. However, we also needed a 1-for-1 recreation of the real cabin's interior. Using reference photos taken during production, I recreated the space in miniature form. Once lit properly, I think most people wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Brian then began work on the hand puppet. Unlike with the stop-motion version, the interior was left hollow, so a performer could fit their hand inside and operate it. Imagine those dinosaur hand puppets McDonald's was giving out in the early 2000s.
Big chomp.
One major scene required the creature's head to burst through the cabin wall. We tried to do it with the full-scale head, but it didn't really give the effect we wanted. Next, the cabin would explode. We had one chance to get it right. Using a black powder charge and 2 cameras shooting at 120 frames a second, we set the charge, held our breath, and boom.
That was great.
And so this is what we got. I think it turned out pretty good. But that wasn't the last explosion in the film. We also needed a full-scale explosion. The technique I discovered might sound a little weird, but it worked very well, and relatively safe. Coffee creamer. Yes, you heard me right, coffee creamer. It's flammable and makes a great movie fireball. Besides the pyrotechnics, we also built a dead cow, a magical glowing bullet, a jail cell, and a variety of other props. There were also several gore effects in this section of the film. At one point, the creature rips off a sheriff deputy's arm. To achieve the effect, we built a fake arm and rigged it with a blood pump.
Ready? Okay, go. 1, go.
Beast of the Valley also featured several large-scale miniature landscapes. We built a massive valley floor used as a background plate during the beast charge sequence. We also did an exterior of the creature's lair and an extensive farm miniature complete with a barn and windmill that are eventually set ablaze. With all this work done, we finally finished the third part of A True Myth, A Beast of the Valley. The final phase was to film the connecting segments that would bring together all three stories. The character of Joel Deckard is a man devoted to investigating and ultimately debunking the paranormal. His journey to the town of Pleasant Valley brings him in contact with our three leads. Each tell a story of their paranormal experience. From the beginning, I had one man in mind. I had a teacher from film school that I had a working relationship with. Micah brought Joel to life and became the final piece connecting the narrative. While Brian was finishing up the storyboards, I began work on the fake mine shaft entrance, complete with a minecart and sacrificial altar. The exterior was carved out of insulation foam and built onto a wooden frame, while the minecart was fully wooden but painted to look metal. The altar was insulation foam painted to look like stone. We turned our barn into the interior of the mine shaft. This required us to lay down plastic tarp and cover it with dozens and dozens of bags of topsoil. Years prior, Liberty Nature Center had provided us with a bald eagle for a tourism commercial. This time around, we needed a buzzard for the opening scene. They graciously provided us with the bird, which was very tamed and looked great. Also, if you look at the final shot, you'll notice a small unplanned detail. Just take a look. I was also able to test out an old 16mm film camera for the opening montage that shows some cryptid found footage. We finally have arrived at the final stage, post-production. Besides the basic editing, I also had to wear many other hats. I color graded the film along with doing hundreds of special effects shots. Puppets like Bugman and the Eel were all filmed against blue screen and had to be composited into the plate shots. In all, the movie takes up over 20 terabytes of data. That's a lot of raw footage. I can't explain how many months of my life have been spent editing this film, fine-tuning the cuts and working through the visual effects. Staring at an editing timeline long enough can cause you to go insane. One area many people underestimate is sound. My friend Ryan is a talented musician. He has helped with post-sound on dozens of our projects. We spent nearly a year working on the sound design and Foley for this film. Every footstep, grunt, room ambience, and creature sound all had to be recorded. A good example of the unexpected places Foley might come from is the demon bird roar from Lord of the Harvest. My friend from high school, Ty Dick, could do this bizarre screech. We even used it in an old zombie film. Years prior, I'd learned to do it, and when the time came to craft a sound for the demon bird, I recalled that ear-piercing screech. Here's an example. With a little pitch shifting, the demon was given a voice. You might not think about it, but even a simple scene requires a tremendous amount of sound work. Alongside the sound design, we were also fortunate enough to work with an incredibly talented composer, Pablo Anson, who created an original score. Music is what brings a film to life, and what he created feels truly cinematic. This film took 5 years. It survived deadlines, distance, exhaustion, growing families, and moments where quitting would have been easier. But at its heart, a true myth is about belief. Belief in stories, belief in monsters, belief in something beyond what we can see. And sometimes, believing in yourself and finishing what you started. As Joel Deckard says, to see, one first must believe.